Hi everyone, welcome back to my author channel. My name is Monique, if you didn't get that from the title. Right, in this video today, I'm going to speak about character arc, character development. And just remember, guys, that this is just my experience of being a writer for 17 years and learning what my readers want, what my readers love. And I've really worked very hard to develop my characters in my books so that they are very realistic. So at the end of this video, I'm going to pop up a video that you can go watch about creating real characters and how important that is. So even if you like writing sci-fi or fantasy or paranormal, something that has supernatural in it, your characters have to be like real people. So the environment can be fantastical, but the actual characters have to be real people. And I give different examples, and yeah, just go, just go watch it. It might be very interesting for you, especially if you're a newer author and you perhaps struggling a little bit with how to write real characters. So this video is also going to help you a little bit with that. So what I'm going to speak about a little bit is just I'll give you an example from one of my books, Avalin, a Vympari legend. I'm going to pop it up here for you. My main character. So I'm just going to give you, without spoilers, I'm not going to do any spoilers because I really want you guys to go and read my books, And by the way, all my links, purchase links for my books are in the description box, every single one. And there's also an email address if you want to chat to me about anything. Please mention that you did watch my video on YouTube and that you want to chat a little bit more. I get so many scammers and spammers, so please be specific that you have watched the video, that you are a new author or an author that is struggling with the character development, and then come chat to me in the email and I'll be more than happy to speak to you as long as you want. Okay, so character arc. Okay, and by the way, I'm also going to make a video about story arc. All right, later. Character arc is just as important as the story arc. Okay, so if you watch a movie, the movies that do very, very well are the movies that have very powerful, strong characters. And I don't mean by strong characters. I mean the writers have really gone into deep, in-depth development of a character from the second you see them on the screen. And I'm just going to speak about principal characters for now, your main characters, and then what they go through during the film, and then the conclusion at the end of the film and what happens to them at the end. And when you as a moviegoer come out of a movie and you go, damn, that was so good. I got so emotionally involved. It just riveted me from beginning to end and I never lost interest. Then a writer has done their job. And it's the same thing for a book. Okay. It's vital that you have strong characters that have in-depth emotional experiences, but they go through, the reason why they call it an arc is that they start down here, and I'll be doing the Avalin example now in a second. They hit like something chaotic and climactic that happens around about the middle of the story, like a movie, and then something happens to them, and by the time they get to the end of the story, they are different people. Okay, so that's like a typical formula that happens in films and in really good books. That the characters change, they become different. Either they become worse. Really great idea. You can have a villain that ends up being the hero at the end. So I'm doing this so you can see it on the screen. And then you've got a hero that starts at the beginning and ends up being the villain at the end. Okay, so it can be very interesting like that. Or goes through starts off as a hero, becomes a villain in between, and then decides to change their mind about who they want to be, and then ends up as the hero again at the end. There's so many different ways that you can do it. All right. So it is so important for your reader and for moviegoers when they go and see a film that they get personally invested. And I say this phrase often in my videos, personally invested in your characters. They've got to feel what your characters are feeling. They've got to experience what your characters are experiencing. Otherwise, the story doesn't matter what goes on in the story. Your characters are superficial. There's nothing deep about them. There's nothing realistic about them. So it's very important that you have that in every single character, not only the principal characters, okay, but even your supporting actors, your supporting characters, the small ones, okay, they can also go through very quick little arches in a story. Now, just quickly, I am going to speak about Avalin, which is a standalone book. So the story arc of characters have to happen much faster. If you're writing a series, that can take much longer. It can happen over the entire series. So I'm writing my epic fantasy series called The Sword Bearers, and there are 12 books. My main character, literally goes through a character arc from book 1, and it ends in book 12. So it goes right through over 12 books. Okay. She kind of like reaches, there's a huge twist in the story around about book 10. So book 10, there's a huge twist in the story. But then she still continues to grow and learn and evolve in the last 2 books. Okay. So, because I've got to keep that going. Otherwise, the reader's going to give up in like book 6, and they're not going to be interested. Okay. So that is my hard work that I have to do that. Right. So let's talk about standalone books. But the same principle applies for series. All right. So I'm speaking about Avalin. So in Avalin, I will not do spoilers. She starts off, and it's in the synopsis, so I'm not really giving spoilers, but she's basically, at the end, she has given up on life. She has lost her husband and her son in a terrible riverboating accident. So the story takes place in the late 1800s in America's West. The story is more on the East Coast in my story. And she, the only way for her to survive is to become a prostitute in a brothel, because she's basically, when she loses her son and her husband in the accident, the family, her husband's family, who were very wealthy, take everything away from her, and she's basically kicked out onto the street. Okay. And when the owner of the brothel finds her, she's basically stealing food off tables and in the marketplaces, because it's the only way she can survive, and then offers her a life, a roof over her head, fed, but unfortunately has to be a prostitute in a brothel. So when the story starts, she's given up on life and she's looking for a permanent way out. She's looking, okay, she doesn't want to live anymore. But then fate intervenes. Okay, so this is where I bring in the other principal characters, and her life takes a huge, she doesn't necessarily buy it straight away. She's a little bit wary of what's happening and what she gets told by these other main characters. And initially she's like, she can't see herself as this important person who can change things, and not only change her world, but another world. Okay. So she starts off, fate intervenes, and then her journey, her POV, what goes on in her mind and in her heart, that's where the journey begins, because then she starts asking herself, am I really this worthy that these people are telling me I am? Am I that important? Can I do this thing? And she starts asking herself these questions. And as the story evolves and as she evolves, okay, so she's surrounded by these people that are telling her that she is the most important human on the planet. Okay, I'll give that a little bit away, because of A, B, C, and D. And if she dies, then there's going to be calamity for them and their people. So her story arc, she's ready to die. Then fate intervenes and makes her see herself as something else and something different. Then all the drama starts happening. okay? The climax, the clash, things that happen with the different characters. Oh, and I just want to mention as well that it's very important that your character arcs match the story arc. So you can't have your character in a different, things have to happen at the same time with your characters and your story. But I'll get to that in my next video when I speak about story arc. That's it. Okay, so things start happening, things start getting a little bit chaotic, because Avalin is also, it's a vampire horror, but it's got that twist of sci-fi. So I don't want to give too much away, but it has a science fiction twist to it, which I love. It's like fantastic. And I have made a video about Avalin and where I got the idea from. So if you look in the playlists under, I think it's under Monique discusses Avalin or something like that. I can't remember now. It was a while ago. Right. So here she is. Now she's discovered that she's very important to these people that have come into her life, and she starts seeing herself very different. She starts seeing herself as, I can do this. She starts gaining courage. She starts getting more courageous, and she starts getting this inner strength. But in the meantime, she's always had it. She's just forgotten that she's had it. And this is where the reader, as she's discovering herself, the reader is discovering her with Avalin. Avalin and the reader are on this journey together. And that is where you grab hold of your readers, because they are on the journey with Avalin. They are on that journey of self-discovery and evolution and growth with Avalin, with the characters, okay? And the other principal characters are also going through their own personal growth and learnings and things like that because of Avalin. So Avalin is teaching them things and they're teaching Avalin things, and there's this interaction, and then all of them are evolving. But the reader is invested in all these characters because there are also things in these characters that they can identify with as human beings. That is why your characters have to be realistic. They can't have fantastical experiences happening to them. They have to have real things happening to them. Like wanting to end your life is very real for many readers reading the story. So anyway, so now we get to the story arc. Now it gets to this huge clash with the antagonist and enemies and things like that, and things look dire. So in Avalin, it reaches a point where it actually looks like she's about to die. Okay, so now the reader's like, what do you mean? It's like the middle of the story. She can't be dying or dead or okay. So this huge fight happens, and Avalin and the other main characters, it just looks like the end of the story. Here the story is about to end, but we're only halfway through the book. Okay, so now you've got the reader hooked. What is happening? How can you put this here? And now where's the story going to go after this? Okay, that is what you want. That's the reaction that you want from your readers. Where's the story going to go? And then they are not going to put that book down. Okay, you've got a hook. Here's the hook. All right, so now here's Avalin. Excuse me using my hands. I'm an actress and a ballet teacher, so I speak with my hands. And I'm a Gemini, so I'm a little bit mad. Okay, so anyway, story arc. Okay, so here there's a point in the story where it looks like it's the end for everybody. And you're like, sorry, what? Like, how can this happen? But then there's always something that comes in and gets woven in beautifully. Okay, a twist in the story. Okay, put as many twists in your stories as you like. People love that. Readers love that because that's what keeps them hooked. Okay, reaches a certain point in the story and that looks like everything is at its worst. So in a movie, okay, when you see the superhero, like say Superman is being pummeled, okay, and he's like on the ground and he's half dead. And for example, in Henry Cavill's last Superman movie, where the movie ends with him dead. Is he dead? So how can they make another Superman movie? I think it was Justice League that came after that. How can Superman be dead? how they going to save the world? How they're going to like protect the world without Superman? It's that kind of vibe where it looks like everything is just, there is no answer. There's no solution. Everything looks at its absolute worst. That's what happens in a movie. Now you've got the viewers sitting there eating their popcorn, stuffing their face with popcorn and going, what's going to happen now? I don't know what's going to happen now. And it's that kind of energy that you want, okay? Then something comes in and the situation gets resolved, but in a way that no one sees coming. Yay. Okay. Da-da. And then Monique's doing the arch again with her fingers. And then the story continues. Okay. Things turn out in the solution presents itself. Okay. The solution, the answer to everything, the understanding comes. Your reader goes, oh my word, I didn't see that. Oh yes, now I see. Oh, okay. Hey, what, keep going, page turner. Okay. But now we don't quite know what's going to happen to Avalin after this climactic, chaotic point, this drama, okay, that's happened where it looks like she's at the end. Okay. But now how's it going to conclude? That's how you keep the reader hooked. How's it going to end? At the end of the story, okay, at the end of the story, without giving away spoilers, she turns out to be more than she herself has ever imagined herself to be. She sees herself as a completely different person to who she used to be. And in more ways than one, she's a different person. So, like, if you compare the start of the story where she is literally on the verge of ending everything to the end of the story where she is the hero, the savior, the star of the book, the one that is going to make everything better. And your reader feels that intense satisfaction of, oh my word, look what she's become. Look who she is. And there's a scene right at the end of the book where Avalin stands up to a very powerful, very scary character, okay, and that can end her life. But it turns out that he actually looks at her and does the opposite, where he looks at her and goes, she is powerful, she is strong, she is who we need for da-da-da. I'm not going to give it away. I can't. I know you want to know, but I can't. Okay. All right. But it turns around where her salvation is complete, who she is. And she stands up. There was no ways at the beginning of the story that she could have stood up to this person. Okay. She was a little mouse, terrified, trembling in a dark hole. And now she becomes the hero, the heroine, the power, the answer to everything. Okay. Can you see the story arc? I've just done it as simply as possible, but it's very clear. Okay. We're doing the rainbow. Okay. The rainbow dance. Okay. So guys, that is just one example from one of my characters. That just remember, your goal as a writer is to keep your reader turning that next page as fast as possible. You want that person to start a book and not go to sleep until they finish reading the book. That is the kind of writer that you want. And the best way to do that is to get them invested in your world, invested in your characters, invested in the story of what is going to happen next. What is happening next? How is this going to resolve? When they start asking questions like that, how is this character going to save the day? Are they going to save the day, or are they going to end up dead at the end? Or are they going to end up the hero at the end? Or are they going to become the villain at the end? What is going to happen to them at the end? Okay. And that is when you have hooked your readers and you are an excellent a writer who is just on fire with characters and story and ideas and creation. So it's very important that you have those strong, visceral, emotive, dramatic characters in your stories, no matter what genre you're writing. Okay, it can be any genre. I'm a multi-genre author, so my main stuff is fantasy and sci-fi, and like with Avalin, it takes, like as I said, it takes place in the 1800s in America, like West, okay, where America is just starting to expand, and railway lines are being laid, and it's still that era. But I put the sci-fi twist in it that I haven't seen any other writer do. But that is how my brain works, okay? Because I love those what if elements. What if this world and that world clashes and becomes creates something else? So I really hope this video helped you. I really hope that it's given you some idea of how to expand and create characters and build drama and build that climax, and get to a point where the reader's asking all these different questions. What's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? And they, when you create characters like that, where your readers just cannot let go of them, where they become so invested that they are emotionally, they feel the pain of the character, they feel the joy of the character, they cry with the character, then you've nailed it. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it there. All right, please guys, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Please subscribe, please support my channel, hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. It's not going to cost you anything. And if you really like my content, hit the notification bell next to the subscribe, because it'll notify you when a new video gets uploaded. And I also make shorts out of all these videos, so you can go and look at the playlists, look at all my shorts. And I'm always giving writing tips, having discussions. My latest video, but just remember, I'm going to pop up that video here about real characters. It should be popping up around about now. But I've also just done a video called Are You an Outliner or a Pantser, which will help you, especially if you're a new writer, get your ducks in a row and help you plot. And it just depends on your creativity at the end of the day. Okay, I really hope this helped. It was such a pleasure spending time with you again. And authors, I will see you in the next video.